So when I talk about wireless, the first thing everybody says is, oh, great, Wi-Fi. But there's other kinds of wireless on our devices, and I think some of them also need some examination. And one of them that scares me a little bit is Bluetooth. Everybody's got Bluetooth on their phones. There's probably a Bluetooth in your car. And it's kind of handy. And in fact, companies like Apple and Samsung force you to use Bluetooth if you want to use headphones now. Because the old headphone jack, apparently was too expensive to keep putting on there. So you're forced to have to use Bluetooth.
Bluetooth is something like not really absolutely secure.
It isn't very secure. Well, we're going to talk about that. So Bluetooth says, hey, I can pair things and it works okay. I will say you can tell a certain difference. If you have a good set of headphones, and not Beats, but you have a decent set of headphones, like some Sennheisers or something, and you use them over a Bluetooth connection, there's a lot of audible loss. It's not the greatest thing if you're an audiophile. But we use it for a lot of other things. So my car, it connects into my car. And I can put up navigation on the screen and all these different things that are kind of handy. I can play my podcast so I can listen how people are getting murdered and different things while I'm driving down the road. So Bluetooth, great technology. But here's kind of where we have an issue. So we call them a PicoNet when you establish a small network. So they made a really cool little, that's not really much. But it really just shows that you can have multiple connections in there. And this is some terminology you're going to see changing. So this is, in a lot of our computer terminology, that's how we used to look at it, was we used the terms master and slave, and that's disappearing, and for a good reason. So, but we have one unit that's in charge, and then other units that we're connecting to. So we can have multiple units. So some people at their house, you're connected via Bluetooth to things like printers. Well, that's great, and it works. Here's the problem. Bluetooth, when you hook it up in your car, and some of you may remember this, how hard was it to do? Did you have to put in a set of codes? Yep, it does. It pops up and says, hey, here's a code, and or on the device or from the car. But they're limited to 4-digit codes. And the most common code is 4 zeros. Great. Well, that's not really very secure. And if you think about your phone, how much personal information do you guys have on your phone? Is your life on your phone? Is there stuff you probably wouldn't want everybody else to see? Probably. So, getting access to your phone with Bluetooth, well, maybe it's not as secure as we thought, but it doesn't work very far because Bluetooth is limited. So Bluetooth in theory has about a 30 to 40 foot range at most. Or does it? So we have experimented and played with Bluetooth a little bit. And one of the things I would love to do if we had kind of a class where we had just a focus on a couple of items and we had the entire semester is I would love to build something like a Bluetooth cannon or a long-range receiver. And people have been experimenting and getting 250, 300 feet of range out of Bluetooth. I know weirdly with my own connections, my wife and I often weirdly find ourselves down in Auburn and we're both driving towards Lincoln and we're tailgating each other. And I have been a significant distance away and she gets a phone call, but because it was still paired last to my car, it comes in on my car. And it's a pretty significant distance. All right. So we have some issues there. Bluetooth is not very secure. But now we have advertisers that are wanting to send information through it. And so we have a couple of terms. And the first term is something called bluejacking. And bluejacking sounds really horrible. But bluejacking is really harmless but annoying. It's the ability to send information to your phone. So malls and different shopping outlets are trying to find ways to do things to your phone to tell you, hey, You've arrived. I see that you're in the mall. You should go to Victoria's Secret. So you get messages. The Casey's app apparently utilizes Bluetooth. And the only reason I discovered that one accidentally was we were on a motorcycle ride. And I typically turn off everything on my phone because I can't hear it anyway. And so I had turned off everything except Bluetooth because I use a Bluetooth up to my headphones so I can listen to music while I'm driving down the road right at the exact speed limit that's legal. And I go up to a Casey's and I'm getting gas and it pops up on my phone, hey, I see you're in Casey's. Why don't you turn on your Wi-Fi and then you can enjoy our specials? Yeah. So, an example of bluejacking. They're sending data to you, nothing stolen. This is kind of an advertising mecca that's being explored. Imagine if you walked onto campus and you saw ads on your phone about classes being offered in the spring. So, we're seeing that. But the other attack we're seeing, which sounds actually less horrible, is the idea of blue snarfing. And snarfing says that somebody's got access to your device and they're taking information away. So blue snarfing says, hey, I'm going to grab emails or contacts or photos or other information on your phone. So that could be really devastating. And several celebrities you've seen had their accounts and phones hacked. I'm not Britney Spears. Probably nobody is chasing me to see what photos I have on my phone. But could there be pictures on my phone that are not really great? Yeah. Yeah, and I just deleted because I was scrolling through pictures. And not too long ago, my 9-year-old child had a rash on her butt. I took a picture of her butt with the rash and sent it to my ex-wife who's a nurse and said, what the heck is this? Do I want everybody to have a picture of my 9-year-old's naked butt? No. So we have to be careful and see what's out there and what's on there. So here's the really good thing about Bluetooth. There's a couple of advantages to just turning it off. And Apple has made it really easy and the Androids have made it easier to turn it off. So generally it's on the first screen. We can turn it off. Does two things. One, you'll save some battery life because as it's running, it's a radio and it's sending out and receiving signals. So you'll have a little better battery life. And two, you won't get people doing horrible things to you. Now, if you want to walk through the mall and you still want to wear headphones, then I'm kind of a little more of a loss as to what we want to do. Unfortunately, Bluetooth, the security behind it, has not gotten a lot of red flags yet. We've had all kinds of other technologies that have said, oh my goodness, this is horrible, let's fix it. And as far as I can see, Bluetooth is still kind of being ignored a little bit in terms of security. One of the problems is going to be then, if we do make it more secure, how are you going to connect to older devices? Because nobody's going to go to my 2013 Nissan and replace the radio and update it so I can work it with a new phone, right? So one issue we have is with Bluetooth. So the other one, and most of your new phones have something really cool called near-field communications. So near-field says, I can go to McDonald's and I can put my phone up and use Apple Pay or Google Pay, and I can pay for my French fries off my phone. It's one of the ways they're used. You have to be only a couple centimeters away. Little more than that sometimes. But again, if you're being dishonest, can you get within a couple centimeters of somebody? Yeah, what about if you're in a crowded train station? So what near field does typically near field works very much similar to RFID. So you have some kind of a tag that's being excited, and that doesn't put out a very strong signal, but it turns it on. So you may have tags for some of your credit cards or gas cards. They're very little tags, and you have to put them right up by the gas pump. That's the same idea of this near field. Well, if I can excite that in other ways, great. They're being used for even things like turning your cars on. And so now there's an entire industry devoted to how do I steal your car information so that we can start your car remotely. And so there are computer programs and technology you can actually just go buy out on the web So you could take your laptop and your antenna and go driving around the neighborhood and trying to steal people's car information and restart their cars remotely. Because most vehicles don't have a hard key anymore. If you have a newer vehicle, they're almost always just a little box that you have in your pocket. It's kind of handy. You don't have to pull it out, turn the key on. But it's vulnerable, and we've seen a lot of those. And you have actual real keys. Nice. Nice. But it goes back. I have here is a well chewed up Prius key for a 2007 Prius. And it starts that way. So we see them in contactless payment systems, and it's kind of handy, I will tell you that. And I think at some point we're not going to carry around a wallet full of credit cards because we have everything on our phones. Is it any more secure? I don't know. I will say this. I teach a cybersecurity class. I went out, was it Friday night? Friday night. We went to Omaha. We decided we were going to go throw some money away and have some free beverages. So got my free Diet Pepsi, Coke, whatever I had over there at the Harrah's Casino, but I used the ATM. Next day, my wife's debit card and my debit card were both compromised. So my guess when I went in there, that they had a skimmer on top of there, so it was pulling them out. Oops. It happens. And it was very clear that that's where it happened. And they had actually cloned the cards into physical cards and were trying to buy gas in Wisconsin when my company flagged it. So what can we do? These are really kind of cool. We can eavesdrop. So if I can get a hold of your information, maybe I'm trying to find out some information about you so I can get a bigger exploit. Rather than just go get a tank of gas, which is what they were trying to do with my credit card or my debit card, I can maybe get a little more information. So I can actually get into your accounts and then wait until I know when your paychecks are deposited and then empty them. Maybe I just want data. Uh-oh. So I want your payment information. I want phone information. So there's a lot of different ways we can do it. And one of the worst ones here is this idea that, what if they just steal your phone? Now we put all our credit card information. We've done this. So I have seen students who don't use any kind of pins on their phones. So you pick it up and you can get into it really easy. That's handy. It's great until that phone disappears. And then somebody else has access to everything on your phone. So passwords, pins, again, it's that balance of convenience and usage. And we can see that now because we see it. I try to use my iPhone and I got to put in my giant long pin because it doesn't recognize my face because I got the face mask on. So we also have some other different types of technology. So I kind of casually mentioned RFID tags. So RFID tags are used in a lot of applications. Actually, the most common thing you guys have probably seen them in is the phrase when we see, hey, we chipped my pet, or you microchipped your pet. That's a form of an RFID tag. So we're also seeing them in retail. Walmart had the idea that they wanted to put RFID tags on every item in their stores, and the price hasn't come down enough. But if we could do that, what that tag does is it works with a radio signal, excites it, and then it vibrates at a specific frequency, and you can get a number back out of it. We could put a tag on every item in Walmart. You shove it all in your cart, and you go through a scanner, and it checks out everything you own or everything you bought on that cart automatically. So be kind of handy. We have people that have implanted those smart chips into their hands or their arm so they can get into a building. They don't have to have a card. Not saying that's necessarily a great thing to do, but we see these RFID tags all over the place. Your new passports, if you have one of the newer versions of a passport, has an RFID tag so that when you go through an airport, they can actually read that from some distance away. They don't have to actually open it and see it, and it's actually scanned against a computer. So again, kind of the same issue we have. Do you want people to get that information? So now they sell for your passports. You can buy basically a foil bag that surrounds it and keeps you from reading it remotely. So I have to keep people from using them inappropriately. If I'm at Walmart and I know that those little stickers actually have an RFID tag, and I know if I peel that off of the TV and I put the one for the pair of socks that was $10, now I can walk out the door and nobody's going to notice that I bought a TV for $10, right? So we have to be able to have some ways to secure that. And we also need to see what's going on. That data that's in there. And it's usually not a lot of data. They don't store a ton of data. What they store is like a key or a serial number kind of item, and then we can access a database about them. But if I don't have that information, and now I can get that information about somebody, I can see it. So let's say we put RFID tags on all of your pharmacy drugs that you buy. That's great. And some hospitals actually are doing something very similar because they want to scan the drug so they make sure it's for the appropriate patient. But what if you are running for a local political office and I'm able to scan your bag as you walk out of the store, and it shows you've bought a whole lot of maybe some kind of lithium drugs for bipolar diseases? Is that information that everybody needs to know? And I'm going to say no. No. So RFID tags are also an issue. And we're working to make them safer, but again, it's an issue that doesn't receive nearly as much press, especially in the consumer market, because we don't see those. On the business side, hey, a lot of these ideas would be great. How do we implement them? And now people are finally starting to ask, how can I implement them safely? So now we're going to get to where everybody says, oh, you meant wireless, and you're meaning Wi-Fi. That wireless LAN. That's how we connect to all of our devices. So we have some issues with this. It's not the safest environment always. But let's take a look, and we got to do a couple of details about what it is. So historically, hey, if we go back in time, we've gotten faster. Originally, it was only 5, 6, 10 megs per second. It wasn't very fast. All of the standards for Wi-Fi start with this 802 dot something. So 802.11ax, which is out now, AC, N, B, all of those. If somebody says the latest standard is 802 dot something, that's what we're talking about when we talk about wireless. So the old original standard, we had an A and a B. We came out with G, and then all of a sudden back in 2009, we came out with N. So N was a pretty interesting standard, and it stayed around for a long time. Most of the access points in these buildings, I think, are still Model Ns. It's been around. It's pretty fast. At home, you can easily get 50 to 100 megs per second on a single connection. We've come out with a new one called AC. AC is now, in theory, over a gig per second. And now we have one called AX, and now they've kind of changed some of the names. So now you see the terms like Wi-Fi 6, which is really AX, because they figure they can sell you something. Kind of like they've sold 5G. Hey, 5G's got to be better than 4G because it's one more, right? So now they've come out with the new terms. So you're seeing things like Wi-Fi 6. Well, part of what it does is how far can we transmit data, how fast can we transmit data, and that leads to what frequency we're using. So 2.4 used to be the common standard. We're trying to move away from that, and one of the reasons is there's a lot of stuff on 2.4. So a lot of other devices, so it's probably the most easily corrupted signal area. So even if you have an old microwave that's really not working that great anymore, if you turn on the microwave and your Wi-Fi disappears, well, that's 2.4. That's about the same frequency that they're using for that. The higher frequencies, we can also put more channels in, because there's some dirty little secrets about Wi-Fi. We think there's hundreds and hundreds of different channels, and there's really 3 on the old 2.4 band that you can use. So you get into a crowded apartment building and everybody's got a Wi-Fi antenna in there, you really don't have that great a service. our Wi-Fi, typically, we have an adapter and then some form of a base station. So we have something like here where we have an access point. So you can see them up in our ceiling. At your house, you typically have one device that does everything at once. And that's your access point. So your internet comes in and your network connects, and that then serves every piece of your network. A larger network like here at the college, you may have hundreds of those access points. So if it's running in that mode, so we have those all set up, we call it infrastructure mode. But Wi-Fi can also do something called ad hoc. And ad hoc really says, I'm going to make a connection between two devices. Sometimes it's a great way to set up something temporarily. So I am a big fan of a company called Wyze, W-Y-Z-E. They make small cameras, they make light bulbs, and a lot of other products to set up their light bulbs, for example. They're programmable smart bulbs. You actually have to connect to your light bulb with your phone as a wireless access point. It connects directly to start with, and that's how you set it up originally. So at your house, you have this little device, and it's got everything all in one. Pretty handy. They're not that expensive in most cases. But there's kind of an issue. And one of the issues with wireless is wireless doesn't stop where we want it to. I can't say, I don't want wireless past this door. And so it makes it harder. There's a fuzzy area we can't control. We don't have that ability to just stop things because we say, hey, there's a window there. I don't want it to go past that. So because we can do that, and because it doesn't have that hard edge, we've got vulnerabilities that are easier to exploit. So come here. So some of these things like rogue access points, and I've told about like the UMB, or a bank that shall remain nameless, that rogue access points, evil twins, in other words, setting up an account that looks like Go Blue or wherever you're at, somehow intercepting that data. So this right here is something called a pineapple. And so hopefully we'll get to try that on Thursday for those of you that are on campus. This is a pineapple. Pineapples are kind of evil. It's set up to become that idea of an evil twin or a man-in-the-middle attack. This guy is not really expensive. You can go online and buy this for $100. If I want to capture a bunch of login data and set it in airport, I don't have to invest thousands of dollars. I can do the same thing with a lot of other things. So if I want to set up an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi to do the same thing, I can do that also. This just comes pre-canned, nice small hardware, doesn't take up a lot of room. We can set it in a backpack along with a computer, and you don't even notice it's there. So we have denial of service attacks. So if I can create a signal that's stronger, then that can also stop my Wi-Fi from being very effective. So here's our network that's all wired, and notice I can contain everything. I have a firewall, there's a single point of entry onto this network. I can't get, or it's much less hard to get devices introduced on there. But when I do that idea of a Wi-Fi, now I have that kind of fuzzy edge. So somebody can get into this laptop and set it on that edge where I can intercept Wi-Fi, because maybe we're not really up on our standards and we're still using an older Wi-Fi standard. Maybe I can log in and I can intercept communications. Maybe I've created something that's going to throw data into there. But once I have that Wi-Fi connection, now I'm connecting it and the wired together. It makes it harder to defend my network. We were one of the last campuses in the United States, quite frankly, to have Wi-Fi for students. And the old IT administrator, who's been gone now for many years, but he really had a somewhat of a point, though, that Wi-Fi opens up a lot of issues that we don't necessarily always contain very well. So, a rogue access point. And you will see those when you try to plug something in your dorm room. Hey, I'm just going to bring in my Belkin router and plug it in. So, an unauthorized access point, some way to get in. So, it doesn't necessarily, it's usually an insider or somebody that, nobody's going to sneak one in usually. But if I just plug one in and that way my kids can get on their Apple TVs or can get on their iPads in my office, that would be kind of handy, wouldn't it? And then we have that link in. That evil twin. So in other words, we make up and look like we're the actual access point that you're trying to get to. Hey, it says go blue. I'm just going to log in. And now we're actually capturing all that traffic as it goes across. So here's that idea. So here's our network again. And here somebody's built an evil twin. In other words, that access point isn't actually owned by the corporation, but I'm able to connect to it. It looks like it is. And in fact, a lot of times we're actually connected back then to the regular network. You don't even notice that all your data is being compromised. Yeah, you're encrypted to that access point. But all your data is not safe. So Wi-Fi has presented some challenges. And so these are a couple of the ideas that we have. We can intercept data. So again, if we're able to break that encryption that they're using, we can use something called wireless replay. In other words, I grab the packets that you sent. You're an authenticated user. I don't need to know any of the information. I just need to have that string of bits and zeros and ones, and I replay it. And if I do it quickly enough, I log in as you. So it's particularly vexing because I don't have to even break your attack or break your passwords. I'm just grabbing what you're sending out, even though it's encrypted, and I'm replaying it right back. And then we can jam it, and we can do all kinds of other things. So if I have a high-powered antenna, and I know that you're using a 2.4, I can jam that pretty easily. So maybe it doesn't necessarily do anything horrible, but you're introducing that company to some kind of discomfort. So at home, same thing at home. And at home, it's even worse. Because at your house, you buy this device, and you plug it in, and they're sold to you by Best Buy or wherever you bought stuff. And it says, hey, just plug and play. It's going to work. It's going to be great. You plug it in. You've never changed the username. You've never changed the login credentials. You used on the bottom, it's got a 4 to 6 digit code, and you just use that. And now, anybody who's very smart is going to get into your network or can. And so I drive down the road and I say, oh, look, here's a Belkin network. And it's sitting wide open. I'll just log onto this network to get my child porn or distribute information, or maybe I'm just checking email. But you don't know that. So we came out with originally something called WEP. And WEP makes me weep. If this is all that your wireless unit can do is WEP, W-E-P, it is time for you to upgrade. And upgrade in a serious way. So the problem with WEP is it sent kind of the same things over and over again. And so it didn't take very long. If you wanted to start grabbing and intercepting signals, you'd be able to see a pattern. And there's all kinds of software you could just download for free and intercept those packets on a Wi-Fi device. And here pretty soon, so usually within 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how much traffic was on that network, you'd be able to find that key and be able to log into that network. Not very secure. So it's better than nothing, but not by much. The worst thing we've done is this. WPS. Turn this crap off. I don't even know how to even... It was designed to make life really easy because that at-home device is going to have a PIN number printed on the bottom of it. And wow, I put in that PIN number and my device is already configured. Except It's very insecure. You're entering a very small number. We know the patterns. It's easy to break, quite frankly. So turn it off. Almost every router and home device, yes, it might make your life easy for grandma. Take the 10 minutes and set it up correctly. Well, all right. So now you broke our hearts because that didn't work. But I got a way to do it. We can do MAC address filtering because you told us every device has a MAC address. Every Wi-Fi, every wired device. And in fact, if I look on the back of this, it's got a MAC address. And it says, oh, it's 00C, 0C, blah, blah, blah. It's got a MAC address. And they're all unique. And it tells me the company, and then it's got a unique one for this device. So, I could probably use this, and I can keep my network safe, right? If I did this, and I looked at every device that's connected to my network, I'd be safe. Well, there's a couple problems with that. Yes, you might be able to make your network a little more secure unless somebody knew how to spoof an address, which things like this and not on the internet, you can do a Google search and do that in about 13.2 seconds. Plus, we exchange that information about those MAC addresses in kind of a clear text format. So, well, I already see the number. I'm just going to use one of them that's already on the network. And if I'm trying to manage these, and my buddies are bringing over their phones or their wireless devices, and I have roommates, now how am I going to manage all those? So it can be useful, but it's not the panacea for everything. So this is what a MAC address looks like. So it is written in what's called hexadecimal. So it's base 16. So there's a lot of information on there. And since base 16, we look in base 10 a lot. So there's 10 characters. Base 16 has 16. So we use A through F as letters. So 00 is the lowest chunk. And if we had an FF, that's the biggest chunk. But the first half says this is the company that built this device. And the second one is that individual serial number then for each device. So in this case, this device would be 00C0CA for the organizational unit. And there are actually databases you can go out on the web and you can put in that first set of it and figure out who built these. Pretty easy to do. So this is an example of that MAC filtering where we could say, I only allow some devices or I block a specific device. So I know that my neighbor's got this device like this, and I'm going to block this address. Again, it's not very effective, and it's a lot of work to try to maintain it. So one last thing for our lecture today, we're going to talk about something called SSID. No, this is not something you pick up on the weekend at the bar. SSID says these are the values. When I log into there and I say, hey, there's Go Blue and there's other networks, that's what it sends out. It sends out a signal and says, hey, this is my Wi-Fi and I'm going to advertise it out there. Well, the common exception is that if I turn this off so that it doesn't broadcast that I'm going to be more secure because you have to know it. Except we really don't. And if you have an Android phone, we can even log in really quickly on an Android phone and you can find out every one of the addresses and the actual name behind it of all of our access points. So it's not really worth turning off. I would certainly make it as undescriptive as possible. If I put in Griffin's at 825 16th Street in Auburn, that's pretty descriptive. And it's going to tell somebody where it's at or give them a clue to what that is. So typically mine are turned on to weird names like DEA drug van. So at least I'm having some fun with it. But make it identifiable, but not identifiable to you necessarily. So we will start on Thursday, and I will introduce you to what has come out, WPA, WPA2, and because our book is a little already behind the date the minute it was printed, our friend WPA3 and what the differences are. And why we want those, because this can make Wi-Fi fairly secure. All right, as far as assignments this week, so there is an assignment, but you get to pick. And again, remember to click that entire book and then go into the chapter. Otherwise, you're not necessarily going to see those. So everywhere from EAP, wireless attacks, wireless security, virtual wallets, configuring an access point. So I give you a plethora of assignments to pick one and turn in. So those are in the back of the book. And there is a discussion board this week also. So discussion board, if I scroll down far enough, we talk about home WLANs. Why are they bad? What can they do? So here's the questions. You need to put up some recommendations. I would probably not start that until we talk all about WPA and some other security solutions and on Thursday. But that is your discussion board. That is your assignment. I tried not to torture you because then next week we're gone completely, and I don't want any homework having to be done in this class over that break, unless you object. We can have like a 5-page paper due over break. Oh, was that Noah? You're saying yes? Yeah. No. Now we're going to have to now. No. I enjoy the breaks as much as anybody, so we are going to try to have as little due as possible. All right, so that is our plan for the rest of this week.